You know, it was Porkopolis, there was big meat processing plants, and a lot of good, hard-working Dutchmen. Well, Chicago, being a little bit better at the political game, they won it. Had Cincinnati won it, imagine we would have in the state of Ohio, Chicago, which is obviously one of the bright, vibrant cities of the world. So be it. With that, thank you for coming and sharing this moment. I'll introduce this by taking please, no credit, but Main Street, about 5 years ago, we began Linda Ulrich's love of railroad, and she kept throwing this out at our committee. And I remembered the story in a management text that said these guys built a brand new hotel over in New Jersey right on the railroad. And the thing went under in 6 months. People had spent one night, the trains were going right by. Everybody moved out at 4 in the morning. We can't sleep here. Some smart guys bought this Holiday Inn. They promoted and advertised the fact that this thing was right on the tracks, and the railroad lovers ate it up. They'd come in on Saturdays and have parties and order buffet lunches so they could sit in their rooms and watch the trains go by. Amazing management story. With that, let me turn this over to the star. Mr. Reese, would you like to come forward and share this moment of glory?
Don't you love it when a plan comes together? Trains and all. Just want to say a few words from the committee perspective. As Dick mentioned, this started some years ago, and you have to wonder sometimes how things actually do get started. Small projects start out even smaller, big projects start out small. There was a couple ladies sitting around a table talking about all the lemons we wound up with because of the trains that come through here. Well, a smart person knows when you got lemons, you make lemonade, right? So welcome to the Main Street lemonade stand. This is where it all began. Coletta and Linda were talking about lemonade, so here it is. We took some trips early on. The committee got together in a van and we all went out to different railroad sites out west. Towns like Deschler and Fostoria and a few places like that. And what we saw were railroad platforms and places that were quite elaborate. And we saw some that were the far other end of the scale. I'm talking porta potty and a picnic table. Okay, so it could be almost anything in between, so we had some ideas and we wanted to start small, and the main thing was to get rail fans to come to town, because they will come. Everybody know the definition of a rail fan? Okay, it's anybody who will travel for hundreds of miles and sit for hours to wait for a train. So I'm telling you, there are no rail fans in Vermilion. You never have to wait an hour for a train. Okay, so we do have locals that enjoy trains here though, so we thought we would give them a nice place to go. And we started out small. We were originally going to have a bulletin board, kind of like this, and it was going to sit right over here in the corner, and that was going to be kind of phase one. All right, we'll start with some information and try to get people to come down, and we started pitching the idea. Went to Planning Commission, Parks Board, and all the things you need to do, and everybody that heard about it said, this is a great idea. Why are you only building a bulletin board? So we said, all right, we'll make it a little bigger. We'll put a roof over it so people don't get wet when they're reading the sign. And then we'll put a little platform, or a little standing platform around it. And they said, well, yeah, but what are people going to sit on? So we thought, well, it's got to be big enough to have some benches. And, well, if they're sitting on the benches, they're going to get wet when it rains. So you got to have a roof over their heads. So it kind of grew. And by the time we got through with all the Planning Commission, Parks Board, building department in town, and the city engineer and everybody else, we wound up with this. Okay? So what we like to say is this is a destination. It's a place to go to actually accomplish your purpose of going to watch trains. So we went to the drawing board. We got some of the local businesses and stuff involved. Travis Mayer architect firm did the drawings for us and got us all right with city building codes and all those kind of things, and that was not easy. Turns out building something for public use in a park is a whole lot different than a deck in your backyard. But here it is. It took a little longer than we expected, a little more material, but we got it. So The Parks Board did wonders for us. You can see the landscaping and everything that's happened here. It's become a real part of the park instead of just a platform sitting over by the side. We're happy you're all here this morning. Just want to mention a few of the businesses. I don't want to get into the Oscars here and start thanking a lot of people because I know I'd forget somebody, then I'd feel really bad. So what I want to do is just mention a couple of the businesses. We tried to keep this local. So the firms that were involved in this, Herc Excavating came over. We had a lot of holes to dig in the ground over here. And if you've ever tried to dig around this part, especially by railroad tracks, the ground is really hard and a lot of rocks. So Herc came over and in a space of about 2.5 hours drilled 19 holes 4 feet deep for us. So they helped us out a lot early on. And then of course we had all these holes, we had to fill them up. So Carter Lumber was working with us and we got a lot of material, got most of the materials from them. And Terry Penna contributed, brought in a lot of gravel for us. You remember the 3-ton pile of gravel that used to sit out here? Okay, that came from Terry. And beyond that, it was all kind of local effort. I mean, it was just people around town. Whenever we needed some help, we just put up the call and people showed up. So it really is a community project, and I want to thank all of you for helping us. Okay. They just put that there. For literally. So that's kind of the history of where we started. It started small with a discussion around the table, and it turned into something bigger and bigger and bigger until we have what we have today. So we skipped all the phases, went right to the final design, and here it is. And I hope you all enjoy it. We have Railfans here. Michael's over here on the end has been here a lot of times during the construction and watching things. And this is what Railfans are all about. He comes here all the time, sits and watches the trains. And he's also a train modeler. Okay, modelers have a soft spot in my heart. So if you look over here on the bench, he already has made a scale model of this platform to go on his railroad.
Oh,
so you have to check that out. It's really pretty neat. Okay, that's really all I have to say. Again, thank you all. Dana.
Tell them about your clock.
Oh, the clock. We were in town, my dad and I were in town. We went looking around to a tool store, actually, we were in. And it's a place called Harbor Freight. And we were kind of looking around the store, and we walked by this clock and said, that looks like a railroad clock. So we walked on by, and then we thought about it for a minute and came back and said, yeah, that is a railroad clock. And it says Grand Central Station and everything on it. So we thought, I wonder if we can get one of those. So we went to New York, and we went to Grand Central Station to see if they had any spares laying around. They didn't, so we went back to Harbor Freight. And Harbor Freight actually did have them, so we have a clock up there now. And it's one of those old railroad kind that's it's on both sides, so you can read it from wherever you stand. So I think the next thing we got to do is get the trains to run on schedule, and I think we took the first step about 11. Okay, without further ado, I'll hand this back to you. Before we really get into the dirty story here and the dirty details of how much work this guy did on this thing, to follow up on his fans of railroad, I know a couple that moved to Arizona from Cincinnati just so they could live near a certain set of railroad tracks. That husband died, and then she married one of the other club members that had another home in the other part of Arizona by the railroad tracks. And this guy owns a railroad. I even brought him in here and had him look at our different observation points to consult on this before Bob got involved. We don't want to go any further without at least addressing Mrs. Kubik standing over here. She was sort of planned, it went step 1, step 2, step 3 in this process over about 5 years. Coletta, would you like to say something? Or?
Well, I don't need to get on mic. I just wanted to say that our seeing as we traveled. When Bob mentioned that we traveled to some other sites, those of you who have not seen the other sites, you have to appreciate this because the other ones don't have a lake, they don't have a river, they don't have stores around. As he stated, they might have a porta potty. It's nothing but a rust belt. and there's nothing around, and it's a scary neighborhood. And so we thought, my gosh, look what we have to offer compared to. So this is just a mecca. And they even come from Canada, and they camp out for a week with their kids in campers. Now, we're not allowing that, but they do that in other places. So this is really a big deal.